Good morning. It is Wednesday, May 4th at about 10 minutes to 11. My name is Larry Cedar. I'm back with you for another session on scanning, spelled Sqanning. Scanning is a relaxation technique which utilizes the incremental release of muscular tension to achieve a deep state of physical, emotional, and mental calm. Scanning, spelled Sqanning, completely made up word, but it references scanning the body, looking for pockets of muscular tension. It's a technique I practiced for years. I firmly believe in its benefits, and so I share it as frequently as I can online and also on the Sqanning Facebook page. Just do a search on Facebook for Sqanning, Sqanning, and you'll see usually a handful of previous sessions that you can reference. They're all basically the same, but we do it live. I do it live here, so that if anyone has any questions about the technique, they can type them in and I can answer them in person. And feel free to message me anytime with any questions about it. So let's get started. Scanning is based on the ideas of a man named Thaddeus Golis, who wrote the book, The Lazy Man's Guide to Enlightenment. In it, he discusses the basic tenets of the universe, that being that everything we see, feel, experience, learn about, do, is either in a state of contraction, squeeze your hands together, or expansion, release, everything. It's sort of a very simplified way of saying that we can look at everything in the world on those terms. Are things contracting or expanding? And that includes us. Are we contracting or expanding? And on that basis, we can move ourselves through life and sort of recognize where we're at, contraction, expansion, and adjust ourselves accordingly, depending on whether we're overly contracted or overly expanded. And what you want ultimately is to be centered, have a balance of both. So we want to, in these sessions in particular, practice expansion, because in life we tend to become overly contracted, which makes us tense, unhappy, obsessed with thoughts and worries and concerns, physically racked with discomfort. We tend to become overly contracted in an attempt to control our life. So we use scanning as a means to balance that contraction with expansion, to release that tension, to let go of those contracted feelings and experiences so that we can be more at peace. And that's it. And we use the muscles to do that. The muscles are the perfect metaphor for the contraction-expansion continuum. Muscles can either contract, make a fist, or expand, release, let go. Squeeze your hands together, contract, or expand. 3, 2, 1, release. So we use the muscles to guide us into a more expanded state. So let's just get right into it today. I've explained this many times before. If you have any questions, as I said, feel free to type them. But what we're basically going to do is use our muscles today to bring us into a more expanded, calm, released, opened state. Again, we move between contraction and expansion, and we're going to use the muscles, the expansion of the muscles, to bring us into a more expanded state. We start with what I call the preliminary phase, and that is the breaths. We take deep breaths, which are expansive by nature, and then we follow that with stillness and silence. Stillness is the opposite of action or activity, which are contractive experiences, and silence is the opposite of words and thoughts, which are contractive processes. So we're taking 3 fundamental basic steps to jumpstart this expansive process. Deep breaths followed by stillness and silence. So try it with me, see how it feels for you and see what it does for you, and note in particular how you feel different as you practice these techniques. We're going to start with 3 deep breaths followed by 15 seconds of absolute stillness and silence. That's just the way we start these sessions. Whatever you were thinking about, whatever you were doing, drop it, let it go, and just take yourself into this physically more expanded state. And we do this gradually and incrementally and increase it. And you'll see as you go that you'll begin to become more and more expanded. 3 deep breaths followed by absolute stillness and silence for 15 seconds. Here we go. 15 seconds, absolute stillness and silence. Deep breath. So we've begun. Sometimes the most helpful thing you can do for yourself when you are in an overly contracted state is to just stop whatever you're doing. Just stop. Be still, be silent. That's the first step. You can't contract and expand at the same time. The moment you've taken these expansive steps, you've already begun the journey towards expansion. You can't make a fist and release a fist at the same time. As you begin to release tension, you stop creating tension. So that's where we start on a very simple level with deep breaths and stillness and silence. So now we take that even further. We expand on that. Now we take 5 deep breaths, followed by 30 seconds of absolute stillness and silence. And when I say absolute stillness, I mean don't move a muscle. It sends a very strong, clear message to your physical being that something has changed. We're not doing anymore. We're doing nothing. 5 deep breaths, 30 seconds, absolute stillness and silence. Here we go. Last one. 30 seconds, absolute stillness and silence, but continue to breathe. Deep breath. Now, an important part of these sessions, these scanning sessions, is paying very close attention to how you feel, what you're feeling as you practice, what's different, what changes, what resistance are you feeling to the process. I always feel a tremendous amount of resistance. My mind, my body wants to keep moving, my mind wants to keep thinking. That battle that you immediately feel take place is very important to recognize, because you're up against your contractive self. You're moving into expansion and you're up against your contractive self. Contraction by nature wants to stay contracted. It's its job. So as you begin to release tension, physical, mental, and otherwise, you feel resistance. You move out of the contracted state into the expansive state. So if you feel yourself going, this is hard, I can't sit still, I can't stop thinking, this is no good, that's perfect. You have met your opponent face to face. You've revealed your opponent. That's good, because a lot of times we are driven in life by this contractive nature, and we're not even aware that it's happening. We just find ourselves stumbling from one thing into the next, and feel like our lives are somewhat out of control. We can't stop kind of obsessing or thinking or worrying. So it's important that you confront it and say, wait a minute, what's going on here? Oh, I see. I'm driven by this voice in me that wants to continue contracting. It doesn't want to stop doing that. So when you really meet your opponent face to face, it's very valuable. So pay attention to the resistance you feel and don't give into it. Keep moving past it. And notice how you're physically feeling different as you begin to expand. Are you feeling more still, more quiet, more at peace? Even the slightest change is of value. Again, any amount of expansion moves you away from contraction. So even if you feel the slightest shift, it's very valuable. You've begun the journey. This whole process is incremental and cumulative. Be satisfied with very small changes, but continue to do them, and they will begin to accumulate and develop and get stronger and stronger until you just release and relax. You're in a completely expanded state, which is the goal. Very calm, very still, very at peace. Let's do this one more time. This time we're going to take 7 deep breaths, more expansion, followed by an even longer period of stillness and silence, 60 seconds. 7 deep breaths, 60 seconds, absolute stillness and silence. And again, if this feels like a struggle to you, that's excellent. That means you've uncovered the source of a lot of your contractive, obsessive nature. You're right up against it. So keep pushing through it and trust it. Eventually you'll break through and you will feel no resistance as you shift from a contracted state to an expanded state. 7 deep breaths, a full minute, 60 seconds of absolute stillness and silence, but continue to breathe and stay as still as you can. It really sends a clear message to your physical being that we have changed. We've stopped doing. 7, here we go. Last one, as deep as you can. 60 seconds, absolute stillness and silence. 30 more seconds. And don't forget to breathe. Ten more seconds. Deep breath. And just register what changes you feel in your body, in your mind. I always just notice that things just seem quieter. My mind is quieter. My body is more still. I've moved into a place where doing nothing and being nothing is totally valid and valuable. I'm experiencing the peace that comes with accepting a state of nothingness. And this is slight. We've only just started. We've only been going for 10 minutes. But this is the preliminary phase, just the breaths alone. And I want to emphasize that, how important simple, deep breaths and simple periods of stillness and silence can change your very state of consciousness, your very state of physical being. So at any point in the day, you can use any or all of these techniques. You're welcome to, you're invited to. But throughout the day, any one of these, just take 30 seconds to sit still and stop talking. Take some deep breaths. These are things we forget to do over the course of the day. So on a very basic fundamental level, scanning is basically reminding ourselves that we have options, that we have control over our state of being, that we actually can manipulate our very state of being through these very simple actions. So there's no step too small in scanning. Any amount, as I said, of expansion is a movement away from contraction, because you can't contract and expand at the same time. Any expansive step is a victory. And pay attention to how you feel. It's really important. Part of this process is educating yourself as to how you work. So when you do these things, say, well, how did I change when I did that? How do I feel having taken those simple expansive steps? What resistance am I feeling to this process? What does that mean? Can I push through that? Just begin to understand and study yourself. I'm an actor, so my job is to understand how my body and voice and mind and emotions work. So I've done this for many, many years. For many people, it's a new thing to go like, well, actually take a minute to think about how I feel and what I can do. And it can be scary. You actually have to feel and kind of come face to face with yourself, which is sometimes something we don't want to do, which is why we'd rather go on the internet or watch TV or take a drink or do anything, eat anything other than actually face ourselves. But as you begin to do it, you master yourself, and it's a very pleasurable feeling because you begin to understand that you can control your own state of being. You don't need to rush to some external force or party like alcohol or drugs or a therapist or a masseuse. You don't have to go rushing off to have someone take you into a more expanded state. You can do it yourself. It's very empowering. So you're studying yourself. That's what scanning is. It's an exploration of how you can control your state of being through expansion. Okay, so that's the preliminary phase. Breaths, stillness, silence. Now we move into what I call the nuts and bolts of the technique, which is, as I said at the beginning of the session, is the incremental release of muscular tension. Squeeze your hands together, tight, tight, tight. 3, 2, 1, and release. You feel that? I want you to pay really close attention. This is contraction. See what that feels like? Okay, that's good. Contraction, there's nothing wrong with contraction. It's strength. It's the ability to bring substances and materials and ideas and thoughts and bodies together and make something happen. So that's good. Strength is good. What we want to do is balance. We tend to be overly contracted, so we want to pay equal attention to the opposite force in the universe, which is expansion. 3, 2, 1, and release. What did that feel like? Immediately, when I release tension, I feel an impulse to take a breath. I feel a sort of rush, a tingling through my body as I've released the constrictions of my musculature, which were useful, which we need. But as I've released them, the blood can flow more freely. The oxygen can flow more freely. So it's a different state. So just pay attention to how different they feel. Neither's all good or all bad, but you're paying attention to the fact that you have the ability within you to move between these two states. You just did it. Contraction, 3, 2, 1, and release, expansion. And as you begin to acknowledge and educate yourself and become more familiar with the fact that you just can move your state in, you can move yourself into an expanded state, you become better at it. It's a tool that's useful and available to you. It's very empowering because you see that you can change your state of being. You don't have to be stressed all the time. you can at any moment say, I'm going to expand, and take yourself into that state. And then go back to contracting if you need to. But again, balance. Contraction, expansion, center, balance. We tend to contract more than we expand. We get contracted, so we need to strengthen that part of us that can move into an expanded state. So again, we're now going to use incremental muscular release, the muscles as a guide to move us into a more expanded state. We move through the body, what I call muscular zones, and we one by one release muscular tension. Doesn't matter how small that release. If you feel that, you've done it. Start with zone 1, the face. On my count, and you can look in the mirror if it helps because you can actually see the change. Release as much muscular tension in your face as you can. Just be aware that you have the power to let go. 3, 2, 1, and release. It's kind of a slouching, kind of a slacking feeling in your jaw, your cheeks, your eyes. You look kind of dumb. Just let it all go. So I want you to experience that. You just transferred your own physical being into a slightly more expanded state by letting go of muscular tension. This is why I love this technique. And I'm not patting myself on the back because all I'm doing is recognizing and acknowledging something we all know, that we can release muscular tension. But I love it because the muscles are so much simpler than the mind. The muscles can either do one of two things: contract and tense, or release, expand. They're not going to argue with you. You tell them what to do, they'll do it. As opposed to the mind, where you go, I want to think about this and that. Well, that's a contraction. The muscles will just release. And you've, in that very simple step, moved yourself, your entire being, into a slightly more expanded state, because every part of you is aware of every other part of you. When you relax here, your feet feel it. When you relax here, your leg feels it. And in the same way, when you relax the musculature, the mind experiences that. And as a contractive device in itself, holding onto obsessive thoughts and ideas, it begins to relax. And all your worrisome thoughts and ideas float away. And you're left free, still, clear, calm, peaceful, aware, and happy. So we're using the muscles as the guide. That's our guide. The face, 3, 2, 1, and release. You feel that? I'm only doing this quickly because I want to move through all of these, but what I want to emphasize is that what we're looking for is a deeper and deeper awareness and understanding of that sensation. Release. 3, 2, 1, and release. So now you can now say, oh yeah, I know what that feels like. I know how to release tension. I know how to expand. I just did it. Zone 2 would be the top of the head. 3, 2, 1, and release. You feel a sort of slackening. That's scanning. That ability to release muscular tension will take you into a more expanded, peaceful, calm state. And I can't overemphasize how important practice is. Personally, I try to put in an hour or two a day. I keep a log as a motivation, but 5 minutes is valuable. 1 minute is valuable. But what you want to start to do is introduce this process to your life so that it becomes as much a part of your life as everything else in your life. And you start to recognize when you're feeling out of balance, overly contracted, you could say, I'm going to take some time to scan or expand. Zone 3 is the back of the head. 3, 2, 1, and release. There it goes. And you feel that sort of, it's as if you had a rubber band stretched across your head and you let it go and it just slackened and everything just went, oh. The difficult part about release is it means letting go. You know, in life we tend to want to control our circumstances naturally because life is scary. There's a lot going on out there we need to protect ourselves from. So letting go of that control can feel scary. You can feel vulnerable. You'll begin to see as you start to do it more and more, it actually feels good. But initially, you have to make that decision to let go. That's the challenge of scanning. The more you practice and the more you understand how good it's going to feel, the more readily you can move through your own natural resistance. So if you feel resistance, if it doesn't feel good, move through it. Keep going. Small amounts. Incremental release of muscular tension. Zone 4 is the neck. 3, 2, 1, and release. And if you find yourself going, well, I don't know, what was my tension? If you find yourself unable to do that, that's because you haven't really focused on it. As you start to focus, you'll start to realize you can do it. You can release the tiniest amount of tension. On the count, be aware of what your neck feels like, maybe how much tension you're holding, and on the snap, release. Just decide to let that go, just as you would let go of the tension in your fist. 3, 2, 1, and release. See, you have the control. You can do that. Squeeze your hands. 3, 2, 1, release. So if you think you can't do it, remind yourself you can't. You are not as familiar with releasing tension in certain parts of your body because you haven't practiced it. But as you practice, you'll get better and better at it. You can look at a part of your body and go, neck, 3, 2, 1, release, and you'll feel it. which moves us into zone 5, the shoulders, very closely related and connected to the neck. Mine just dropped as I released the neck. That's okay. As you release one part of you, other parts might let go. Again, we are a whole, our body. I'm dividing into sections, but everything's connected and related. So as you begin to feel other things let go, let that happen. This is just a means of isolating areas for simplicity of focus. But the idea is to release everything until you're just not thinking anything, not feeling tense, just completely at peace. That's the goal. Some days you'll get further than others. But every release, every amount of expansion is a victory. It's really important that you understand how valuable even the smallest, most incremental amount of release, how important that is. Because again, any movement towards expansion is a movement away from contraction. So pat yourself on the back. Even if you just do a tiny bit of release, you'll get better and better at it. Zone 5, again, the shoulders, 3, 2, 1, and release. There they go. If you feel the impulse to breathe, that's perfectly natural and expected. You have been keeping it together. You have been holding on to tension. You've been holding on to obsessive thoughts and ideas. In a way, you've kept yourself in a sort of frozen, protected position. That's natural. A boxer can't walk into a boxing ring kind of like, okay, whatever. He's got to be ready. So you are in a state of readiness. That's natural. That's good. But now you're choosing to balance your life by having more expansion. So you want to start letting go of that readiness and just be in a state of nothingness. You're letting down your guard, basically. Oddly, the best fighters, and I'm a fan of the fighting sports, boxing, mixed martial arts, the best fighters are extremely relaxed. I tell the story of having watched a fighter on TV one night, and a very kind of small guy beat a much bigger man. And I ran into him at Universal Studios the next day, and I said, "You're incredible." He was very humble. He was a Russian guy. He says, "Thank you very much." And I shook his hand. He shook my hand, and he had the most soft, gentle handshake. It was almost like, just genteel. And I was stunned because here's this vicious fighter who was so relaxed. And it occurred to me that his effectiveness had a lot to do with his state, his ability to relax, so that his muscles were prepared and available for whatever, and he could fight more effectively. He had to be strong, but he has to be relaxed. Again, that balance. And this is what you achieve when you're relaxed. You're actually more effective sometimes than when you're in a state of tense readiness, because you're more responsive, you're more available. Your eyes are open. You're not as limited by your own contractions. Zone 6 is the chest, stomach, in front of the waist, like the plate of armor, I call it. 3, 2, 1, and release. You feel a sort of droop. You'll start to feel feeling come back into your body. When we are taking action, a lot of times we contract, constrict, and feeling gets cut off, because if you're in battle, feelings can be ineffective and actually detrimental to your efforts. So as you contract, you tend to cut off feelings. So the opposite is true. As you begin to relax and let go, you begin to feel those feelings reemerge. Feelings don't go anywhere. You can press them down and conceal them and hide them, as we all know, any of us who've ever been in therapy, but they're there from when you were a child. And as you begin to release and let go, they emerge. So you'll begin to feel tingling sensations, feelings, emotions. Feelings are only scary when they're emerging. Once they're out, they feel great. So don't be troubled by those sensations. Just be aware that that's part of the expansion process. Chest, stomach, front of the waist, zone 6, 3, 2, 1, and relax. Pay attention. How do I feel different? Now, I thought when I started this session, I was in a fairly relaxed state. And as always, I'm stunned by how much tension I've just released, how much more relaxed I might have been and can be if I use this process. We tend to carry around a lot of subconscious tension. We're not even aware of it. We're walking through the day thinking we're fine, but we're holding this contracted state. So when you take the time to relax, to expand, sometimes you're surprised at how much tension you're still holding. Zone 7 is down the back, into the waist and pelvis. 3, 2, 1, and release. Pelvis is an area which is fraught with anxiety for various reasons. You obviously can understand. So there's a sort of a clenching, a holding. See if you can let go of 1%, 2% of that. 3, 2, 1, and release. And again, if it feels odd or vulnerable or weird, that's natural. You're letting go. The pelvis, 3, 2, 1, and release. And again, the pelvis, 3, 2, 1, and release. So now you've done the face, 1, top of the head, 2, back of the head, 3, neck, 4, shoulders, 5, chest, stomach, front of the waist, 6, down the back and into the pelvis, 7. Final zone is down the legs, across the knees, and into the feet. 3, 2, 1, let the feet go and release. And again, the feet, 3, 2, 1, and release. Take note again how you're feeling. For me, I'll describe what I feel. For some reason, I'm always much more aware of the beating of my heart. I guess as you release and relax, your blood vessels and veins are allowed to open up and expand. Your circulation becomes more free. You may feel a throbbing in your feet or your hands or your face because the blood is now allowed to flow more freely. And so I'm more aware of the beating of my heart. I'm more aware of the sounds in the room. I'm sitting more comfortably in my chair. I'm much more comfortable in silence and stillness. I tend to be a fidgety person who can't settle down. And when I move into a more expanded state, one of the feelings I enjoy is a comfort in stillness. Like if I had to sit still for like another 15, 20 minutes and do nothing, I'd be fine with that now. Whereas when I started, I felt like, I gotta, but now I suddenly start to feel more comfortable in my own skin. I'm more at peace with just being. And that's what you're trying to get to. Contraction is effort, work, identity, all the things you use, all the contractions, all the constructions you put together to create this world, this life for yourself. And one of them is your identity, who I am, what I've done, what I'm going to do. These are all these things you've constructed, contracted to build, and you hold on tight to them because you need to get you through life. But as you relax, you start to let go of those. You let go of your identity. You let go of your name. You let go of your purpose. You let go of your job. You let go of your accomplishments. You let go of your past, and you stop worrying about your future. You're just in the moment. It's a beautiful, comfortable, wonderful place to be, because in that place you can experience the sheer pleasure of just existing. What it feels like just to be a human being, breathing oxygen. The feeling of your skin, the sensation of your heart beating, your emotions. Scanning is a feeling process as opposed to a thinking process. I'm not trying to gain satisfaction from my thoughts, although that can be a source of satisfaction, but I'm doing the opposite to bring balance into my life. I'm trying to get satisfaction from my feeling, how I feel. I can go back to reading and debating, taking up political, religious positions. I can do that. That's very satisfying also. That's the other half of life, contraction. But in this particular case, I'm moving into the opposite direction. I'm letting go of all my political beliefs, my religious beliefs, my thoughts, my ideas, my identity, my career, my bank account. And I'm just experiencing what it is just to be. Simple existence. And someone might argue, well, that's boring. No. Once you're there, it's a very rich experience. We forget how much sheer joy and pleasure can come from just our very state of being. Being alive it's an amazing thing. So I like to say that's a place we should visit at least once or twice a day. Again, to bring balance to your life. When I'm done with this, I'm going to get back to work. I'm going to start thinking about things and debating things and arguing and reading the news and drawing conclusions and working out and all those things that are contractions that identify me and how I'm going to face the challenges in my life. But I will come back to it in a much freer, more in rich sense, because I will have touched base with what's at the root of all of that. What's under all of that is just me, just a being. That's balance. So we've done them all. Zone 1, the face, top of the head 2, back of the head 3, neck 4, shoulders 5, chest, stomach, front of the waist 6, down the back and into the pelvis 7, and then across the legs, down the knees, and into the feet 8. So I've moved quickly through these just as a means of reinforcing and the concept and the technique. Feel free to take as much or as little time as you want. My typical sessions for myself, I try to do an hour. And I will start with the face like always, and I'll move through the body. Sometimes I'll focus on one particular region. Let your spirit, your soul be your guide. But the most important thing to know is that if you come up against resistance, if you're frustrated, stay with it. Just keep moving. The bottom line is no matter what happens, just keep releasing muscular tension in some part of your body. And try to stay with it for 15 minutes if you can. I have what I call a breakthrough at 15 minutes. I'll be resistant and fighting and frustrated, and it's not feeling good, it's not working. And all of a sudden at 15 minutes, there'll be a sort of, oh. And that part of me, which was resisting, will just let go and give in to this expansive process. And it's just amazing. So be patient, practice, put in the time. You will get better and better at it. But again, when it comes down to it, all we're doing is releasing muscular tension. That's all we're doing. 3, 2, 1, release. 3, 2, 1, release. 3, 2, 1, the shoulders release. That's all we're doing. That's it. It's been about half an hour. Try to keep it to half an hour. It's called Sqanning, Sqanning. It is a relaxation technique which utilizes the incremental release of muscular tension to move into a state of, I forgot what I was going to say now, to achieve a deep state of physical, emotional, and mental calm. I end every session with rule number one. Rule number one is love yourself. It has to start here. This is what you were given. And you're only going to be given this once. And then it's going to go away, maybe come back as something else. But love yourself. This is it. This is what you were given. Cherish yourself. Appreciate yourself. Thaddeus Gola says love is the most expansive act you can take in the universe because it involves opening up, becoming permeable, and accepting and embracing and coming into connection with what is. When you're expanded, you can join the world. When you're contracted, you conflict with the world. So start here. Love yourself. And as you love yourself, you will be more easily able to merge and love others. When you have so much love in you that it's spilling out, you don't know what to do with it, pass it around to everyone else because we could all use it. Have yourself a great day. I'll repost this on the Sqanning Facebook page. I'll be on my personal page for a little while, then I take it down usually after an hour or so. But hope to see you next time. Have yourself a great day. Feel free to text me any questions and or to message me, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.